If you desire to walk in alignment with your purpose, to live a life of joy, abundance, and fulfillment, you've come to the right place. This is Sarah Locke, and welcome to Purpose Unlocked. Hello, everyone. We have talked a lot about forgiveness because it is one of my absolutely favorite topics because it is just so crucial to living a spiritually and emotionally healthy life. So today I want to talk about kind of the third aspect of it, something that I hadn't necessarily thought of before, but it has just been on my heart this week. And it is the role of the person that needs to be forgiven. So the person that's done wrong. So I want to talk about what that person should be expecting and what we should or shouldn't be expecting from them. And the first thing that I want to talk about is what that person should be expecting. So if you're the person that is in the wrong and you've either asked for forgiveness or it's been a lot of time since the incident has happened or the behavior has occurred, what should you be expecting of those around you or the people that you still want to have a relationship? So a lot of the time this happens within families. You have a family member who for a long time just had really bad behavior or really bad habits and or they were unkind or abusive or what have you. And now that person is clean and has turned their life around and wants to be part of the family. They want to re-engage in those relationships and they want to rebuild the trust that has been broken and all of those things. So while I understand that that person wants forgiveness, and while I believe that we absolutely should forgive them, there are going to be plenty of family members, maybe yourself included, that might A, either not forgive them, or B, forgive them in their heart, but just have certain boundaries set where they're like, that's fine, I forgive you, but like, I do not want you in my life anymore. And if you are the person that is expecting that forgiveness or wanting that forgiveness or wanting to mend that relationship, I think unfortunately, a lot of the time you cannot expect everyone to put down their boundaries and just accept you back into their life. As much as you may want that, you also have to respect other people's boundaries. And this is something that it does hit home for me because I do have someone in my life who growing up was not the best example, was not someone who treated my other family members or really even myself with the love and respect that in general we as a family treat each other with. And and that person has since turned their life around and does want to rebuild relationship. And for a while, that was really hard for me. But there are other family members who don't want that. They don't want a relationship. And, I think that's okay. I really respect that. But it does hurt this person because they think, well, like I'm good now. And the reality of the situation is like you, as the person that was in the wrong, you still have to respect other people's boundaries. And I know that that's if you are that person, if you're listening and you're like, I was in the wrong and I've tried so hard to rebuild this relationship and it's just not working. I think a lot of the time you have to be the one respecting boundaries because you were not the person that was respecting those boundaries or respecting certain things in the beginning. And I do think that's hard and that's probably really hard to hear, but that's the reality of the situation. Not everyone that forgives you is going to allow you back into their life.
What is the difference between forgiving someone and letting them back into your life?
Well, I think the two things are very different. I think that you can forgive someone, but still have the boundary of I don't want this relationship anymore. And that's okay. I think you can forgive someone in your heart, but also know, like, I don't want to get hurt in that way again. B, like, you can forgive someone and not believe that they've changed. They can have evidence that they have, and you still be like, yes, but I know the person that you were. I know your tendencies. I know you could slip back into this. And therefore, I do not want to expose myself to this. And I think that's okay. I know that not everybody is going to agree with me. I have some of my own family members that don't agree with me on this topic, and that's okay. But yeah, you can forgive someone and just not want them in your life.
Can boundaries exist without forgiveness? Can forgiveness exist without reconciliation?
Forgiveness can definitely exist without reconciliation. Reconciliation is not required for forgiveness. You can forgive someone that has never apologized. You can forgive someone that has never become better or made better for themselves or changed in any type of way. So you can absolutely forgive someone without that reconciliation. Is that harder sometimes? Yes. But they never have to be sorry. They never have to change, and you can still forgive them. And what was the first part of your question?
Can boundaries exist without forgiveness?
I think most people put up boundaries before they forgive someone. I think sometimes it's actually harder to keep boundaries when you have forgiven someone because you can say, yes, I've forgiven you, but these are still the boundaries that are going to be in place, whether it's, we just might not see each other as often, or you won't have the same exposure that you want to my children or what have you. I think that those are a lot of the times the boundaries that get put in place. And it's like, no, I have forgiven you, but in order to keep myself safe, my emotional stability safe, my family safe, we're just going to keep these boundaries in place. So I think it makes sense to have boundaries when you haven't forgiven someone, obviously. But I think sometimes it can be hard to maintain those boundaries after you have forgiven someone because a lot of the time people think forgiveness equals boundaries coming down, and that is not the case.
How do boundaries actually support forgiveness rather than block it?
So boundaries are there to make you feel safe, and it doesn't require the other party to do anything. So if you set boundaries around, okay, we're only going to see you X number of times during the week or the month or whatever it is, it's there to make sure that the relationship remains healthy and that you feel safe within that relationship, especially if you're the person that's been hurt. It's there to make sure that you're comfortable with the relationship that you want to continue, foster, maintain, and cultivate now that that forgiveness has happened.
What advice would you give to somebody who has difficulty developing and enforcing boundaries?
I could give like a funny answer, like move to New Jersey for a year or two and just learn how to be blunt with your boundaries. But to give a serious answer, I think that clearly state your boundaries. I think a lot of the people have boundaries that they've built up in their head, but you haven't actually communicated them to the person that needs the boundary. And while that might be a very hard conversation to have, you owe it to yourself and you owe it to that person to have that conversation. So don't build up boundaries in your head and then get mad that you can't maintain them because you haven't communicated the boundary. The boundary needs to be clear, needs to be communicated, and you need to communicate it in a kind way. You don't need to communicate it like, you can't do this because you did this to me, blah, blah. No, don't put all the blame on them. They they probably already know, and if they don't, they're not going to learn by you yelling at them. So just say, this is the boundary, this is where I'm drawing it, this is what's going to happen. The end. And if you don't like it, that's okay. Then we don't have to see you. We don't have to engage in X, Y, and Z. But if you want to engage, these are the parameters around which I feel comfortable engaging.
When that conversation happens, when you are telling the other individual about your boundaries that you were enforcing, how would you handle them becoming defensive?
I'll stick with the biblical advice, which is that a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word. I don't remember the exact quote, but be gentle in the way that you're responding. Don't escalate if they're escalating. Just say, I'm sorry you feel that way. Or I understand that this might be frustrating. I understand that this change in our relationship or in how much we're going to see each other may be difficult. So try to empathize. And that's going to be really hard. You're saying that they wronged me. that I'm the one that has to have this difficult conversation about boundaries, and yet I'm the one that has to be empathetic? Yes, yes. Unfortunately, that is what I'm saying. Be gentle in the way that you're responding, be slow to anger, and those biblical principles will get you through a lot, but don't escalate. And yes, it's going to be a hard conversation. Yes, they are going to get defensive. I have known people that have told me that they've had these difficult conversations and they've gotten cussed out. And sometimes you just need to politely hang up. You need to be like, look, clearly this is no longer a healthy conversation. Clearly this isn't going to go anywhere right now. When you have calmed down or when we're both feeling more level-headed and ready to continue the conversation, I'm available. Until then, I have to go. Thank you. Goodbye. Maintaining those boundaries, even within the conversation, is important. And your boundaries have to apply to yourself too, right? So maintaining that calm and then maintaining the I'm not going to be spoken to a certain type of way. And if I am, I'm removing myself from the situation. That's an important boundary to have as well.
How has your own view of forgiveness and boundaries changed over time?
Well, I think having to forgive people that aren't sorry and forgive people who you'll never get an apology from. I think that that has changed how I feel about forgiveness, right? Because when you're little, you're taught like, oh, say you're sorry. Okay. And then like the person who you say it to has to forgive you. And that's just not how it works. You're not always going to get the I'm sorry. And the person that did the wrong might not even ever realize that they were wrong, but you still have to forgive them and or like for your own sanity and your own emotional well-being. So I think that that has been the biggest change is forgiveness does not require someone being sorry, someone changing, someone realizing that they're wrong. It has nothing to do with that. Forgiveness is actually the best thing that you can do for yourself. It's a selfish thing. You're doing it for you. You are not doing it for someone else.
Is there anything that you feel like we have missed or pieces you would like to add?
Well, I think I would just reiterate that if you're the person that has done wrong, you can't expect their boundaries to be different than they are. You have to let that other person set the boundaries, and whatever it is, you have to respect that. And then on the flip side, if you have had to forgive someone, but you still want them in your life, you need to make sure that you are maintaining and setting healthy boundaries that make you feel comfortable within that relationship. If you have decided to forgive that person, you can't necessarily expect them to change and you can't expect an apology. And that's going to be really hard because you might want them to change. You might want a certain type of relationship with them. You may see other people with their families and think that's the relationship that I want. But unfortunately, with that specific family member, that is not what you are dealing with. And you have to figure out what are the healthy boundaries that I need to set that are going to make me feel safe and comfortable and that aren't going to trigger me getting angry again and again and having to forgive them over and over again. What does that look like, and how does this relationship look healthy and effective moving forward? And finally, having that rough conversation with them, being honest in a kind way, and being very clear about what those boundaries are for you. So I know that this is not the most uplifting episode that we have had, but I think it's a really important conversation that needs to be had. I think it's something that a lot of us struggle with. A lot of us have that family member that we have had to forgive, and it is sometimes difficult to let them back into your life, but make sure that you're doing that in a safe way, in a way that makes you feel comfortable. And if the answer is no, no, that person is not going to come back into my life because they're not going to change or their behavior hasn't changed, that is okay. It is okay to keep yourself emotionally safe. But it is not okay to hold the grudge and let that poison grow within you. It is so incredibly important to forgive. And I hope that you embrace the beautiful gift that is forgiveness because it will heal you. And if this has helped you in any way, please leave a comment about, how forgiveness has worked in your life. And hopefully we can all share that and be a gift to each other. Until next time. Thank you for the precious gift of your time. If you found this helpful, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share with someone you love. Until next time, count your blessings, love yourself, and stay fabulous.